conversation right now. Scott Duffy, former FBI agent, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And these are some very interesting details that Christopher Wray said today. Maybe what was the biggest takeaway you had from what we learned this afternoon?
Yeah, thanks for having me on this evening, Andy. So some of the takeaways that when I was watching live and Director Wray being on camera for this, for what the nation, the world is calling for information was, to me, somewhat of a rarity to see the FBI director providing details and some pretty good details of things that we have known or have not known, and confirming them for the public. Because I think as he, as the director, the leader of the FBI, realizes that even though the FBI doesn't traditionally comment on ongoing investigations, there is a need to know, and the public is crying out for it, if at the very least, some basic information. And I think Director Wray has sidestepped that long tradition of no comment, and in my opinion, provided a wealth of details for the public and of course for Congress.
Yeah, it was very interesting as he kind of detailed that Thomas Matthew Crooks, the shooter there from Butler, Pennsylvania on July the 13th, on his laptop had searched maybe how far Lee Harvey Oswald was from President John F. Kennedy back in 1963 during that assassination. Maybe how interesting is that, and maybe how does the FBI go about searching and looking into this information on their electronic devices?
Yeah, so just like the shooter, having heard that information, I did the exact same thing. I went ahead and I Googled exactly what Director Wray had said that Crooks had Googled, and put that right into my search engine. And so it's logged into my computer as one of my requests, one of my searches. And of course, what do I come up with? I come up with what I imagine he came up with, and that is the amount of feet. And so you have, from what forensics had said back in 1963, that approximately 263 feet or so, 265 feet, that Lee Harvey Oswald was positioned himself and shot that fatal shot. So with regards to that, you have a 20-year-old several weeks ago who obviously becomes consumed with not only the rally, but President Trump being at that rally. And I believe his actual Googling of the distance between Oswald and JFK, he's trying to get an idea with his firepower, with his AR, where do I have to be in order to be able to get off a good shot? And then, of course, as we have learned with the drone and his reconnaissance mission of going back and forth, kind of getting a lay of the land to see where, of all that, where he can put himself. And then, of course, you're bringing in a rangefinder. And as I heard Director Cheadle say, well, it's suspicious in nature. You're not golfing. You're not doing anything with regards to a range. You are there to be at a rally. I would say that range finder is a lot more than suspicious. And so, of course, if you put all that we have learned together, to realize that he was putting himself in the best position to do the greatest amount of harm possible.
Yeah, and of course, some of the preparation, that is kind of what they're looking into in this investigation by the FBI. The drone is also a kind of key piece of information that we learned, that he was flying the drone over somewhat this rally site some 2 hours before the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania as well. Can you kind of set the scene a little bit? I know Director Wray kind of separated the Secret Service from the FBI looking into the motive, looking into maybe what happened right there, the Secret Service doing more of the scouting and preparation. But it feels concerning that 2 hours before, there was a drone that wasn't the Secret Service, wasn't the FBI's, that was flying above this rally. Maybe should they have been more concerned, and what do you make of the drone flying overhead?
Yeah, Andy, I think that's one of the things that are in play here is how did somebody other than Secret Service, law enforcement, or someone tied to the campaign, or someone in the media that has all the privileges and license in place to get the best picture possible. How did somebody fly a drone within just a few hours, not a day before, not several days before, but just a few hours? And having been a part of a couple of these massive events, to where on the outskirt as an FBI agent to see the level of detail that is from Secret Service, and then of course every other participating law enforcement agency in that security, to want to know exactly what are we up against? And that's ultimately what Secret Service is going there in any type of security detail. What are you up against? So you have buildings, you know, typically how many buildings, they know manholes, it's everything that typically is counted for, locked down, secured in some way. If you can't lock it down, post somebody there. And that's somebody in law enforcement who has not only the weaponry, but of course, means of communication that if something were to happen, they can immediately communicate that to the inner perimeter and, of course, ultimately to the stage and to former President Trump and his security detail to say, hey, there's a no go. We got something that we have not yet resolved. And so thereby, let's hold off. And then that would have been in an easy task to delay a few minutes to whatever to the hey, we have to stop this altogether. So flying a drone within just a couple hours, because my thought is on the day of the event, regardless of the time of the event, that day should have been locked down for all intents purposes, and nothing like that should have been anywhere near. And if detected, law enforcement should have been able to have a quick read on it and then be able to track that and then have a conversation. If it's somebody, a kid or somebody who just wants to get a good bird's eye view, to be able to take that drone down, to have an interview and say, hey, this is suspicious, it's not suspicious. And then, of course, if it's a suspicious, raise that level of concern and address it as needed.
Yeah, and of course, the Cheeto said it was a zero failed mission, and they said they, quote, failed in it. I do want to ask you, as well as Director Wray of the FBI said that he was a loner, Thomas Matthew Crooks as well. There really wasn't any connection to anyone else being involved in this. How does the FBI go about kind of negotiating that to figure out that this person maybe worked alone and not with other people? How do they kind of isolate that kind of fact?
That's going to come through interviews. That's going to come through the continued forensic analysis of every device. So, for example, his phone or phones, his gaming devices themselves, and then, of course, any clouds, any piece of information that are stored anywhere, laptops, computers, and I would believe that every computer in that house is has been seized and is currently going through that analysis. So they do their quick analysis, and that's ultimately to determine, is the threat still real? So the shooter's dead, but is there somebody out there that we can quickly assess he was having communications with, and so thereby quickly get to them, because then the threat would still be very real. And so I take it from those early analysis that they do not have him speaking with anybody, communicating with anybody, and thereby declaring him at this point a lone wolf.
Yeah, a lone wolf. And they also kind of said that he wasn't on their radar at all. There wasn't any previous charges or anything that might interest them before this. Is that concerning to you all, to have a person that's nowhere near their radar commit an attempted assassination? Or what do we make of that?
Yeah, I think that's with regards to any type of mass shooting. And ultimately, this is a mass shooting, right? He is shooting, targeting the former president, but taking the life of the fire chief and injuring others. And then, of course, beyond the 8 shots that Director Wray had said at least recovering those 8 cartridges.
Yep.
You're talking about the stampede effect of people falling over each other. And so all those injuries, that domino effect that has taken place. So, with regards to a lone wolf, if he does not have a footprint, what I mean, digital footprint or whatnot, prior to other than a couple of weeks, couple of days prior to the announcement of the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, that says a lot about somebody who all of a sudden decides this is what I am going to do. I'm going to set out to do it. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to make it a successful event, and I'm going to act on it. As opposed to people who kind of begin these ideologies, mental health involved or not, people who are thinking about it, fantasizing about it, and then kind of debating in their own mind. If you have that length of time, this could take days, years, months. Um, they're then at least reaching out to family, friends, cohorts, colleagues who are not involved, but who are at least providing some information of what is going inside their head. And so thereby you have at least law enforcement to say, okay, thanks for if a tip is provided, then they can send people to interview, and there you may not have something at that point to take that person into custody, but then it puts that person on a radar, right? Maybe a letter goes out of concern for a public figure, and so thereby again it puts you on that radar, and so that way, if you do something, something's triggered, law enforcement is able to act quicker, have the information, know where to go because you were already on that radar, as opposed to a lone wolf just wakes up and says, I have an idea. I'm going to follow through this idea, communicate it to nobody, and rather quickly be able to put what seeming to be an amazing plan to compromise Secret Service.
Yeah, and of course, maybe that lone wolf, that loner mentality, potentially kind of makes it harder to glean a motive from this as well. My last question, Scott, before I let you go, is obviously we learned investigators said that Crooks fired approximately 8 shots, AR-style rifle as well, at the former president before being killed by a counter sniper team. Maybe what other information are you looking into? Maybe what other information do you hope we learn from this investigation?
So investigators obviously want to know anybody and everybody involved and anybody that might have received even a veiled message from the shooter, and then to be able to ultimately put all these pieces together and analyze it. The ultimate goal behind this investigation, not only the investigation into the crime of an attempt assassination, and then, of course, the murder and the aggravated assaults committed against some of the attendees, but you are ultimately wanting to ensure that this cannot happen again. And the information is going to be shared as Secret Service does their own internal protocol investigation with regards to the actual breach and creating. I can tell you, Andy, for the many years in law enforcement, whenever there is an issue that comes up through some major event, and they typically are investigations having to do with mass attacks and whatnot, communication is often that which is raised by the people on the ground. And whether it be a lack of communication or whatever, a technical glitch, perhaps you don't have enough reception, all those things that come in place. So ultimately, we need to fix the communication and then to ensure that this does not happen again. And if and listening to this Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner in regarding the possibility of somebody leaving post to go and assist with that search, that those things in place are learning tools for us. And so thereby, even with regards to lack of manpower, that somebody who has a post cannot leave that post. And that just has to be regarded, and you have to attract those manpower from elsewhere and realize, hey, we can't negate one area in order to flood another area, because look what we have. We have that one area, which and was going to end up being a key piece of information in that area where he probably did not know, the shooter, that, oh, the person who was looking at me in the window is no longer there. Those are just one piece after another of a vulnerability that that was perhaps both luck as well as planning for crooks.
All right, very good. All right, very, very interesting there as well. We're continuing to follow this investigation, and of course, maybe a lot of lawmakers calling for accountability in that moment, even if it was a miscommunication, to make sure this doesn't happen again. All right, Scott Duffy, thank you so much, former FBI special agent here on Live Now from Fox. I appreciate your perspective as we're following this major story.
Thank you, Andy.